What's up, guys? Welcome to Film and TV Reviews. Today I'm reviewing Bohemian Rhapsody, the film about Freddie Mercury and the band Queen. So, right out the bat, what did I think of this? I've been debating this a lot ever since I watched it. I can't decide if I thought it was just alright or if I didn't like it. So, I'm somewhere in there, and maybe by the end of this review, I will have a clearer opinion. But let's get straight out the way what I thought of the story. So the story has no focus. I think this is the biggest problem with the film. It doesn't know what it wants to be, it doesn't know what it wants to be about. On one hand, it's focusing on Freddie Mercury, on the other hand, it's focusing on Queen, and then at the same time, it's just trying to be a celebration of their music. Now, each of these three different strands is perfectly fine, but because they're all together, they're all jumping all over from one to the other, it never really dives into them in much detail or depth. So the stuff about Freddie Mercury, it's only ever touching the surface, it seems. You never get a good, clear idea of who he is. In relation to this, because it is a biopic, because it does go from, I believe, the 70s all the way up to the 80s, it ends with Live Aid. That's not a spoiler. The film never states if it's trying to be historically accurate or not. A lot of biopics, they often come out and say based on a true story or things have been altered for dramatization. All that's fine. This film never states anything. So you go into this with a degree of trust in the filmmakers that they're trying to be historically accurate as they possibly can be. The problem is that if you know this history, they've completely jumbled things up and messed around with history by changing the order of events by significant amounts of time as well. I'm going to go into spoilers later on and get into a bit more detail, but this is one of the things that I really just hated about the film. By changing the order of certain events, they've completely changed the purpose and meaning behind those events. And because they're big historical events, I think that's kind of wrong. Had the film come out and said, we're changing this and this, and we're doing things for dramatization, fine, I completely get it then. But the fact that it hasn't done that means that you've got to assume it's trying to be faithful, and they just haven't been. So one of the things that does work well in the film is the basic message, which is all about family and friends and being who you want to be and who you think you are. So it's all about identity, basically. And it resonates well by the end. They do a good job of getting that message out there. Sadly, ignoring all the historical stuff, ignoring the accuracy of all the stuff, this is a pretty generic biopic. It goes through all the beats from rags to riches story, basically. He falls in love, he meets people, he gets famous, he then has a big moment where everything seems to be just falling apart and he's down in the dumps, and all of a sudden he gets this big moment where he comes back at the end. Very typical biopic there, few surprises. The big surprises are when it actually deviates from history, and they're not surprises in the good way either. So, to talk about the ending, non spoilers, but I have already said the ends with Live Aid. The problem with the ending is that it puts all the focus on Freddie Mercury. Live Aid was about more than just Freddie Mercury. And yeah, this is one of the things I didn't like, and I'll touch on this in the spoiler section later on, but I did not like how it put so much emphasis on Freddie Mercury over everything else that was going on it, at this particular event. So to talk about the characters and the acting, Rami Malek recently won an Academy Award for Best Actor playing Freddie Mercury. And I completely get it. He's great as Freddie Mercury. Looks the part, acts the part. Very flamboyant, very quirky character. And yeah, very worthy of the award he's gotten. Everyone else, really well acted as well. They just don't stand out quite as much as him because he's kind of the only character that gets fully fleshed out, really. Everyone else is more just he has the idea of who they are. They never really dive deep into a lot of the other characters in the film, which is a bit disappointing. Speaking of which, there's some questionable representations of historical figures and individuals. I imagine a lot of people who were around at this time and who were involved in all of the goings ons around Queen and Freddie Mercury, they're probably not very happy about this. A lot of the characters are represented in a pretty negative light. Freddie Mercury himself is actually presented pretty negatively at times, I would say, as well. So much so is that Freddie Mercury in this film, very hard to like. I did not relate to him at all. I thought he was a bit of a. I'm trying to think of a nice word to say, but he's a pain in the backside. Because the film doesn't know what it's about, it doesn't know if it's about Freddie Mercury, it doesn't know if it's a character piece, it doesn't know if it's about the music, it doesn't know if it's about Queen, the band, and the history of the band. It never delves into the characters all that much. So, yes, Freddie Mercury gets a lot of the attention, but even then, it's just on the surface. You never dive deep into him. It leaves a lot up for interpretation, and there's a lot left to explore with Freddie Mercury, I believe, in this film, and it wants you to figure it out for yourself at times, what's actually going on. So to move on about the production, great music. Well, duh, it's Queen, some of the best music ever made, and it has that going for it. I think Rami Malek might have sang all of the songs in the film. I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about that because I'm not sure how much of it he actually sang. But it's got the Queen music in there, they're good songs, so the soundtrack's great. It's very fast paced, very stylish, very colourful. I like the whole aesthetic and style of the film, that's very good. Things move along briskly. It's about 2 hours, 15 minutes, I believe, and it never slows down. I think the problem is because it doesn't have a focus, it does at times lose my interest. It does get a little boring in places, but the editing keeps things moving briskly. So even if you do get bored, it is just momentarily, and then all of a sudden, hey, another big song, and you're back up and back in the mood. The cinematography is good, very colourful, like I've said. And what I liked about the cinematography and the way the film looks is that it does kind of represent Freddie Mercury. He is flamboyant, he is quirky and colourful, he is a big character, and the film's look represents that. Casting, I think that all the characters pretty much look their part. Yeah, you're gonna recognize certain individuals. There were some individuals in the film I didn't realize were linked with Freddie Mercury and Queen. Just a couple here and there. Also, Mike Myers is in the film. That's not a spoiler because it's in the opening credit scene. It says Mike Myers. But yeah, nice touch to have him in there. And it is a period film. It is primarily set in the 70s and 80s, so there's a lot of attention to details and costumes and props and sets. It all looks very realistic. It all helps with the immersion, and it looks like what it's meant to look like. So that's my spoiler-free thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody. I was really debating about whether or not I should watch this because Bryan Singer is the director. He is credited as the director, and I don't like the idea of him being the director. A lot of controversy surrounding him. I'm not going to go into it here and now, but yeah, I felt almost at times like by watching this, I would be supporting him, and I didn't want to do that. But at the end of the day, I chose to watch this because I do a film and TV show every week on YouTube. I think it's hard to ignore a film as big and as relevant as this right now. At the end of the day, Bohemian Rhapsody, I suppose I thought it was alright. There are things I like about it, more on the production side. Acting great, but I do have some really questionable things about this film, particularly with its portrayal of history and the time in which it's set. But I think if you like Queen, if you like Freddie Mercury, you're going to find something interesting here. But just be warned, I don't think it goes into as much detail as it could have or should have. And that's primarily because it doesn't know what it wants to really be about at the end of the day. So, if you've liked this review, I'd appreciate it if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton, or subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up, like this, share this across social media, let other people know about it, because if you don't like it, someone else might. And until next time, that's all I've got to say about Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm now going to go into spoilers, so you've been warned. Go watch the film, then come back, watch the rest of this. Bohemian Rhapsody, full spoilers. So I've only really got one spoiler thing to say, and that's about the historical accuracy of the film and the timeline. If you know the order of events that happened in real life, you're going to be really annoyed by what happens in this film. Because in this film, they changed the order of the events by several years, it seems, at times. And that changes the whole meaning and purpose behind certain events. So the big example is Live Aid. Live Aid, a big charitable event, very historical, very important moment in history, I would say. And Queen got together, done a performance at Live Aid, and they raised a lot of money for charity. The way this film represents Live Aid is very questionable. The film basically says that Live Aid was a big failure. No one was watching it, no one was putting any money into it until Queen performed. And I say that's a load of rubbish. I find that really hard to believe, and it's a really bad misrepresentation of Live Aid and the event. Of course, we have things since then suggesting that maybe the money raised from Live Aid didn't go to the right people and so on, but that's a whole different matter. The fact is, this is a big, important event, and this film completely changes what it was about and how it happened. And that's not the only way it does it. Freddie Mercury died of AIDS. He died of pneumonia relating to AIDS. This film shows us that Freddie Mercury got AIDS, was diagnosed with it, was dying from it, and then informed everyone about it before Live Aid. Well, that didn't happen. That actually happened after Live Aid, a few years after Live Aid, in fact. By changing the order in which this happens, it makes Live Aid all about Freddie Mercury having one last hurrah, one last big performance. And it changes the meaning behind that, it changes the whole importance of the event. And that's just wrong, I think. Particularly with an event like this, I think that's wrong. That's all I'm going to say about Bohemian Rhapsody. Spoilers. Had the film went in and said, we're changing things, we're dramatizing things, we're trying to make things a bit more suitable for film, I'd be fine with it. But it doesn't do that. It doesn't say that it's a fantasy. It doesn't say that it's altering events or characters. Instead, it just plays out and you're left to assume that it's being as accurate as possible. And by treating the audience like idiots and changing events, it's just bugged me the wrong way, really, and I don't like it. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm going to end this review here. Thanks for watching. Twitter, Instagram at _Grant Burton. Subscribe to my channel, yada yada yada. Thanks for watching.